Hey, Game of Her Own listeners, if you are listening to this when it airs, you know that Thanksgiving is around the corner. So I'm going to practice what I preach when it comes to setting boundaries and sticking to them. That means taking a break and slowing down around the holidays. So this week and next week, the Game of Her Own team and I are taking some time off. What does that mean for you? Well, I never want to leave you hanging. So we are rerunning a fan favorite episode. This week, we're going back in time to episode number 14 with Las Vegas Raiders Vice President of Premium Service and Guest Experience, Qiava Martinez. I hope you all have a wonderful holiday with whoever and however you choose to spend it. Hi there. Welcome to Game of Her Own, a podcast about women who work in sports. I'm your host, Jahaan Blake. I bring you stories of women who are game changers, incredible leaders, and trailblazers in the sports industry. You will get a behind-the-scenes look of how they navigated their journey, valuable lessons they learned along the way, and advice for high-achieving women just like you. I'm excited you're here. Let's do this. Your voice. It is one of the greatest tools that you have. How do you use yours? Do you use it to expand your network? How about to ask for your worth and advocate for yourself? Do you use it to speak truth to power? My next guest, Qiava Martinez, Vice President of Premium Service and Guest Experience for the Las Vegas Raiders, shares how she never let being an introvert stop her from using her voice, and how when she used it in the right way, she got exactly what she wanted out of her career. Qiava takes us on an incredible journey from entrepreneurship, where she had dreams of being the next Oprah, to taking a $10 an hour part-time job with the Raiders, where she thrived and became an executive. Y'all, Qiava is an absolute powerhouse. And during our great conversation, where she had me cracking up half the time, she shares a lot that will empower women in their journey in sports. Get ready for this one. We hope you enjoy. Qiava, welcome to the Game of Her Own podcast. Thanks for joining.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited to be here with you today.
Good. So are we. All right. So before we talk about what you do now and all the amazing jobs that you've had at the Raiders, take us back in time and tell us when you first fell in love with sports.
Oh, that's such a great question because it's an easy one for me to answer. The first time I fell in love with sports was the first time I saw my father play. He played for the San Francisco 49ers for 11 years, and he was part of the first Super Bowl 16. So he has a Super Bowl ring. So growing up, that's all I ever loved was football because my daddy played. And it was amazing to just watch him, even though I was 3, during that time. I still remember going to see him at training camp with my mom and going to the games. I also remember going to the Super Bowl that they played against the Cincinnati Bengals. I remember all those things, and they've stuck with me. So that was the very first time I fell in love.
Wow. So you're there with your family and your dad, and you're watching him play. And what was that like, that feeling of just being in the stands and you're like, that's my dad out there?
It was amazing. I knew that my dad was a superhero, but it was a great feeling knowing that other people thought that he was a superhero, because to me, he could do anything. He probably flew, you know what I'm saying? So it was extraordinary. You're taking me back to those moments right now. And I still can remember that feeling as a young girl. And, I come from a big family. I have 7 brothers and 1 sister. So we would play flag football all the time, got my knees bruised up and scarred, trying to be the running back or the defensive end like my dad. And we just all wanted to be just like him. I usually tell people that all my brothers played collegiate sports, but I was the first one to make it to the NFL. So,
oh, really?
Really, I was the very first one to make it to the NFL. Who would have thought, right?
Wow. All right. And so then did the others try to follow in your footsteps?
They actually did. I have one of my youngest brothers, Matthew Harper. He is a coach for the Philadelphia Eagles. He's been coaching there now for about 7 years. He was a part of their Super Bowl run. my daughter turned 1 the day they won the championship game. And so that was a fantastic celebration. So now my dad and my brother have rings, and I've been in this industry way too long. It's my turn.
All right. So he's got you beat on just that one little thing, though, but you still got
just that
first.
one little thing.
He can't go back and change that part. So you can still get a ring.
Fingers crossed.
Yes, exactly. It will happen. So how did you make that transition, right? So you have your dad's a football player, then your brother is a coach. How did you make that transition into wanting to work into sports?
I kind of fell into working in sports because graduated from UC Berkeley, political science major, and I thought that I was going to have a career in the legal world. And right after college, I went and worked for this big law firm in San Francisco, and I realized it just wasn't for me. And so I went through a couple of other jobs and tried to find my way. And then I really had a passion for teenagers. And I established a publication called Culture Magazine, where I took my youth board writers to the NAACP Awards, the BET Awards, and we would work the red carpets, and they would interview celebrities. But the real heart of the magazine was, them writing about their life issues. And so I did that for a while. I thought I was going to be the next Oprah. We see that didn't happen. And my magazine, after 3 years of publication, we were nationally distributed. It folded. Advertisement dollars weren't coming in. Subscriptions weren't enough to keep the magazine established. And so I went through this dark period where I felt like my dreams were over. And one day my brother Johnny called me up and said, "Hey, I'm going to this career fair the Sacramento Kings are putting together. I want you to go with me." And I was like, "Oh, no, I can't go. I can't do anything." He said, "Get your butt up and come with me to this career fair." So I ended up going to the career fair, and I met a young man who was the inside sales manager for the Oakland Raiders at the time. And he and I started to talk, and we had a great conversation. He said, "Hey, you know what? I think you'd be really good at the sales stuff. Why don't you come in for an interview?" And to this day, I do not know what got me down to headquarters to interview for a part-time $10 an hour position. That wouldn't even pay my gas because I lived an hour away. I ended up going. I met with the then CEO, Amy Trask and Robert Davis, and they hired me on the spot. And I said yes, which was really crazy. So that's how I kind of fell into sports. And, I grew up a Niner fan. I wasn't thinking anything of the Raiders, right?
Right.
And that one moment kind of established my career path in sports.
Wow. So you went from entrepreneur, running your own magazine, to getting pushed off the couch into a job fair that you didn't want to go to, and like a $10 an hour job. That's a huge change and a shifted mindset. So what was it about that job that made you want to say yes to it?
Oh my goodness. I really don't know, but I'm glad that I said yes. So I took the position, $10 an hour. We were working 40 plus hours a week. And I ended up loving it. Even though I was picking up the phone, "Hi, this is Qiava," at the time, Harper, with the Oakland Raiders, like to sell you some season tickets. And people would hang up on me and cuss me out because that was during the time where the Raiders, our draft picks weren't what people expected them to be. And I started the year of DeMarcus Russell. So there you go. I found a real love of trying to connect with people and get them into the building. So it kind of turned a light on for me. So when I was doing the inside sales position, I put together a timeline for myself. I said, I'm going to work really hard at this job because obviously I like it. I'm going to give myself 3 months. If they don't promote me within 3 months, I'm going to figure something else out because I need benefits. I need a real job. And so in 2 months, they promoted me to a full-time position. Wow. And so I continue to work my way up. And you know what? It's still like being an entrepreneur, right? Within the organization, because I was able to find a niche, right? My niche was working with youth groups and selling them group tickets. And I created a fundraising program from that. So I'd go to the local nonprofits, tell them if you sell a certain amount of tickets, you'll be able to keep a certain percentage for your organization. So the Raiders took notice of that. I was building my own business. And then they came to me one day and said, hey, we'd like for you to start our group department because you're doing so well. And so then I was in management and I started our group department with the Oakland Raiders. So still bringing that entrepreneurial spirit and working really hard.
Tell everybody what you do now, what your title is.
My title's too long. I am the Vice President of Premium Service and Guest Experience. What that means is my department is responsible for servicing all of our fan base, right? So that's our season ticket members, PSL holders, and then our suite and premium base, which is really fun. So we get the opportunity to create lifetime experiences for fans. And on the experience portion, that's when people come into the stadium. So my team also makes sure to provide the top of the line service with our concierge program for our premium level guests.
So you have a big job and you've been there for 12 years. You started as a manager and now you're an executive in football. So how, everyone listening, and how did you do that? How did you every single day show your value and your consistency and show your worth to get to where you are now?
I love that question because I know a lot of young people ask that when I have the opportunity to speak to them. And the way I showed my worth was I continued to work hard. What does that mean, right? So I went above and beyond in every position that the Raiders gave me. Let's start back with inside sales. Going above and beyond. It was as simple as the uniform. So for inside sales, we were only required to wear a Raider polo and slacks. I didn't do that. I said, no, I'm going to go in here like I'm a full-time employee. And I wore my business clothes. And so just as simple as that, because my mindset was different. So going above and beyond, creating and establishing relationships within the organization outside of my department. So I went and spoke to vice presidents, directors of partnerships, and our broadcast team. So people knew who I was and I wanted to know who they were. So I had, alliances within the organization and was able to do that. And then finally, the thing that I made sure to do was speak up. So whenever there was an opportunity to say something, whether it was hi or bye in an all staff meeting, I did it, so people knew who I was. Those were the three simple things that I did to continue to work my way up. And because of those relationships, when it was time for the organization to think of who can be the next vice president of premium seating, Qiava, because she establishes great relationships and she's a great leader. I didn't have to interview for it. I was put in the position.
All right. So you just gave us three great nuggets, right? So above and beyond, relationships, and speak up. Let's talk about the relationships first. What I hear is a lot of people hate, let's call it networking, right? People hate forming those relationships. Maybe we should change the word from networking because it's such a bad word and just call it creating relationships. But people don't like to, it's nerves, it's stepping outside of your comfort zone. I mean, name all the reasons, right? Self-doubt, imposter syndrome. Like nobody wants to go and introduce themselves as somebody they don't know. I'm going to be bothering them. So I love to coach my clients on how to get out of that. Would love for you to share with everybody how you kind of just approached it.
Yeah, I mean, that's great because we all have that imposter syndrome, right? Especially for me in the position that I am in, I'm probably, in my organization, I am the only Black executive, right? So you have that feeling of, I got to say the right thing. I have to do the right thing. I have to be on at all times. So when I was looking to establish relationships with people, number one, sometimes you gravitate to people who look like you. That's fine, but you got to get out of your comfort zone and expand, right? So a lot of my mentors within my career have been white males because I was able to learn a lot and take those bits and pieces from what I've learned and bring them to my own career, right? My personality. So for me, I'm an introvert. I really am. So it was, and it still is hard for me to go and introduce myself to a person that I do not know. But I force myself to do it. And you try to find the thing that you can connect with that person. So that puts you a little bit at ease. So if we're speaking and I find out within our conversation that you're from the Bay Area or you graduated from this school, that tends to help with the conversation. It's not easy, but you just got to do it and get out of your comfort zone. It doesn't feel good, but it's necessary. So that's what I did. Hi, I'm Qiava. I'm new here with the Oakland Raiders. Do you have a quick minute? I just want to stop by and say hello. And they grew from there. And I've made some wonderful friends with the Raiders. Some are still here, some are not. I mean, heck, I met my husband here. I had to say something.
I love that. So how does the introvert, right? I'm an introvert also, so completely understand you. How did you go about speaking up in meetings?
Yeah, it took some time. I'm not going to, tell you that I was able to do it day one, but when you want something so badly, you can't sit back, right? When you're a go-getter and you're passionate and you see yourself being somewhere, I think that's what helped me. Visualizing where I wanted to be. There was an office in our Oakland building that was on the second floor. And every time I would walk up there to go speak to our vice president of ticket sales at the time, I would always say, that's my office. That's my office. And it ended up being my office, by the way. Nice. But I'm not able to obtain that if I don't speak up. So when we would have our all staff meetings, if someone said, are there any questions? I'd make sure that I would have a list of questions set, even if I already knew the answer to it. I just needed to speak up. So I would have a list of questions prepared. So when the nerves started, when I knew I was about to raise my hand and my stomach was about to bubble and start sweating, I had my script. I have a script today because of that feeling, right? And so I just have my list prepared and I would raise my hand and I'd ask the question. And as I'm raising my hand, that self-doubt would come in and I would say, you don't know what you're talking about. Why are you asking this question? Everyone's going to look at you like you're crazy. You didn't say that word right. But I just kept it up and would ask my question.
Yes, I know all of those feelings way too well. You took me back. They're like, all of a sudden you would go to raise your hand and it's just like, you're hot. I'm like, wait, what just happened? What just happened? Is something bad about to happen? But once you do it, I don't know about you and your experience, but every single time it got a little bit easier.
Yes.
Until it was like, okay, Jahaan, shh. Yeah. We hear you.
Stop talking.
Yes, every single time it definitely got easier. And I'm hearing too is preparation for you is key.
It's key. You have to prepare. I can't do anything without preparing. I had a 9:30 meeting this morning, and it's just as simple as running down what my department is doing. But I prepared. I have my notes ready so that I make sure that I hit every point and I make sure that it comes across clear and it comes across like I really understand what I'm talking about, right? Because sometimes with confidence, we say things and we don't put the confidence behind it. So that's what helps me to be confident in what I'm saying is to prepare for everything.
You said something interesting, being the only Black executive in your department. Did I get that right?
In my organization.
Ooh, okay. I thought I heard that, but I was like, no, that wasn't it. Okay, so only Black executive in your organization. I think we have a little bit of understanding on how you navigated, right? Because you were creating those relationships. You were purposely going after people who didn't look like you. But for somebody who's listening, what advice would you give them if they're feeling a little discouraged or a little intimidated from a lack of women or the lack of employees of color? Like, what advice would you give them?
So the advice that I would give is to get out there and get yourself some allies, right? Because if you have people that you can share experiences with and they can share with you, you realize that you're not in this by yourself. There's other people out there that may possibly feel the same way as you, and coming together gives you some strength, right? So that will help you and motivate you to not be discouraged and to get out there. And again, if you are the only one in the room, to be able to speak out and get rid of that self-doubt, because it's going to come in, and it comes in frequently. But if you have people in your corner that you can continue to talk to, I would highly suggest that. I mean, I'm usually, if something happens, I'm calling up my husband, I'm calling up one of my colleagues that I have a great relationship with, and it makes it a lot easier to go through those certain situations. But that's what I would say. Get some people in your corner that you can bounce things off of, and that you feel comfortable with being personable with them.
What I'm hearing you say is don't keep it in.
Don't keep it in.
Let it out. Let it out to your allies within the organization or externally as well.
Yep. Absolutely. I have the great privilege, our president, Mark Bedane, he is a great man, and he allows for the conversations to be had. Listen, for the Las Vegas Raiders, we have a great history of hiring women, hiring people of color. We have a great history, but we also know we have work to do for our future. So in light of everything that's going on in the world today, our president came to my office, sat down with me, and we had a conversation. And he knows that we need to work at getting people at the table. And so by me being able to express things that were not comfortable to him, he heard it. And now we're going to do something about it. But that's why I've been here for so long, because of the organization and how it's more like a family here. For him to come into my office, sit down and speak with me and want to make a change and look to seeing what we can do for women, for people of color, it's an amazing feeling.
Do you have to request that meeting?
Nope. He walked right in. Matter of fact, I'm in our temporary location right now. I'm not at our new headquarters, and his office is right next door to me. And he walked right in. And then today I had a question for him, and I walked right in his office. And again, that's all about relationships. I've established that relationship with him since 2008, when I was an inside sales part-time employee. He was our CFO at the time. And I said, hello. That was the beginning. Then I told him about my family. He knew about my father, and it went that way. He was even at my wedding. So that's really important when it comes to relationships. But even though you have a relationship, sometimes there's things that people don't know about you. Don't be afraid to share those things, because by me sharing my experiences with him a couple of weeks ago, now our organization with HR is going to work out some things to implement.
So for those who are listening right now and are thinking, okay, this racial awakening has happened in our country, and like on social media, it's starting to get a little quiet, but a woman's listening right now and she still wants to make change, but her president isn't coming and knocking on her door. So what advice would you give her on how to even approach it? The thing I would say is, if you have a wonderful HR department, I would start there. Because the HR department, if I know for a fact with the NFL, they have initiatives that have been given to them that we could implement, right? So I would start with the HR department if you do not have a president that you can go to and have a conversation with. Start with the HR department. If you have a good relationship with your direct manager, go there as well. And also, you don't have to wait for people. I don't know how everyone's organizations work, but start something on your own. Since our department, as of right now, because there's so many things going on with the NFL, is there a season? Is there not a season? I have two wonderful gentlemen in my department
that they're going to implement a book club. They came to see me and they're like, hey, this is what we're thinking. I said, you know what? It may not be time as an organization as a whole, but let's start within our own department. And you guys are free to start whatever you want. So I say that to let everyone know, if you don't have that open door policy, go to your HR department. And if you're able to, just start it on your own, right? Start a book club, start a conversation, whatever it may be. Just don't wait on others. Mm-hmm. That's all. That's not easy, but that's what I would recommend.
So, and you're saying really, hey, even a small step is better than no step at all.
A small step is better than no step. To me, that's a win. Mm-hmm. Be consistent with it, right?
Right. Yes. And you're not going to be able to start with this profound program that changes your entire organization, by 2021. These things take time, but you can be the change agent behind it.
You can be the change agent behind it. And that's another way of showing your worth, right? Be the change agent, show your worth. And the things that are in place took years and years and years and years to establish. So it's not going to, like you mentioned, it's not going to change overnight. But a small step is, I think, a great win.
Hey, Jahaan here. I hope you're enjoying the interview. I'm sure you are thinking about your own career right now and how you can pull out in front of the pack to take your career to the next level. For 18 years, supporting women in sports has been my favorite part of my career, and I would love to support you. Whether it's joining my free Game of Her Own community or one of my one-on-one coaching programs, I am here for you. Send me a message at jblake@jahaanblake.com or DM me on Instagram @jahaanblake, and let's schedule a time to have a free session. I cannot wait to hear from you. All right, let's get back to why you're here. Shifting gears, thinking about your team, I know that you love, and it's something that you're very proud of, is watching your team grow and take their career to the next level. So, I there's a lot of women out there who are like, okay, how do I advocate for myself to get that promotion, to get that raise? Tell us what approaches, give us some secrets here. Tell us what approaches work with your employees when they come into you and ask you for that raise or that promotion or more responsibility.
Right. So with my team, what I love is for when they sit down in the chair in their office and I ask them, where do they see themselves? And they say, where you're sitting. Oh my God, I love that. If they don't say that, then there's really not much I can do for them, right? Mm-hmm. There is, but it's like, I need you to realize that this is where you want to be.
Right.
And I know that you're going to do everything possible to get there. So for me, this was a difficult one in my early career of advocating for myself. I remember speaking to my husband and he'd advocate for himself. He'd go in, hey, I need a raise. This is why I need it. This is the figure I want. These are the things that I've done in the past where it justifies my worth. He would walk out with either his, salary increase to what he wanted or somewhere in between. Me, I would go in and I'd be like, hi, what I did. Thank you for putting me in this position. I appreciate everything that you've done for me, for putting me here. I'm just so grateful and happy to be here.
Yes.
Same pay. So by having the conversations with my husband, with my mentors in the industry, I realized that closed mouth doesn't get fed, right? That's the saying. And it's true in the business world. And so I started to advocate for myself by having the data behind why I was worthy of my salary increase and, the things that I plan on doing in the future. And so by doing that, I was able to have the conversation with my boss. And he's a numbers guy. So you have to show a numbers guy the numbers. If he was a big picture guy, you show the big picture guy the big picture. You communicate to them the way that they receive information. So I tell my team my story, and I'm very open and honest with them so that they can understand, hey, you know what? if I'm going to come during my review and ask for a particular adjustment, I better come prepared, and I need to ask. And I love my team, and they do it every year. Now it's to the point where I'm like, hey, listen, no.
I know why you're coming in here. Nope.
No. I like it, but.
So are you telling me your husband went in and just asked and, here's what I want, here's the title I want, and got it. And then you went in and did the whole, I always call it, so grateful to be here sort of speech. And you got the same results. Is that what you're saying? Did I hear that right?
So I would go in with the thank you, and I would leave with the same salary, because my boss didn't know what I wanted.
Oh, I'm glad I clarified that. Okay.
He was such a great guy. He was trying to get me to see my worth, gave it to me. That would have done nothing for me because I wasn't getting what I was looking for, and my husband was. That motivated me to be like, okay, something needs to change here, right? And not only my husband, my other male counterparts, right? Within the NFL, NBA, even out of sports, they feel more comfortable. Men feel more comfortable showing their worth and showing the numbers of why. Not even at the Oakland Raiders, but in my other positions, the law firm, I didn't show my worth. I didn't ask. I thought that by me doing what I was doing was good enough. It's good, but it's not enough. You still have to advocate for yourself. And, there was a time where even with me going in there and saying, I'm so grateful, I would get a percentage increase, but it was not to what I thought I should get. It wasn't until I started advocating for myself. And he was just waiting for me. He was just waiting for me. And I'm so grateful for that experience because it's not cocky. It's not me trying to be better than someone else. You have to speak up for what you believe you're worthy of.
My guest last week, we talked about, she's like, we have to get over this grateful. She's like, we have to just turn the page of just from being grateful to be here. We don't need to, they know we are. It's a relationship, you and your organization, it's a relationship. So just turn the page on. I'm so grateful to be here and ask for what you want. Yeah.
Absolutely. For me, because I was promoted, I'm so grateful to be here. Thank you for the opportunity. They wouldn't have put me in that position if they didn't know.
Yes.
Right. So again, speak up for what your worth is. Now, if you're not worth it, you're speaking up.
If the numbers aren't there. Right. That's another story. We'll do another podcast episode on that. So 12 years with the Oakland Raiders, then turned into the Las Vegas Raiders, and you have obviously come along for the ride. So talk a little bit about having to make that decision to pack up and move your family, and how did all that go?
You know what? So I knew nothing of Vegas but the Strip, right? I didn't know anything outside of that. So when we made the announcement that we received the bid to move to Vegas, I was actually on maternity leave with my daughter. And so I told our president, I told my direct boss, I'm not going to Las Vegas. There's no way I'm going to Vegas. Yeah, they still remind me of that from time to time. But I made the move, right? I love the organization. I love, the opportunity of being able to build a stadium and open that building up. So I relocated to Vegas in October of 2019. My husband relocated in September. And I tell you, the decision to come out here, it wasn't an easy one, but the transition here was easy. I love this community. I miss Oakland. I love the Bay Area, but this community is a well-knit community. There is beauty here in Vegas. It has its own beauty. Mm-hmm. I love my time here. And it also helps that my parents moved out here as well. So they live in the same community as my husband and I. So that's been a wonderful blessing a lot of people are like, wow, you got your parents to move and they have 9 kids. And I'm like, well, you see who the favorite is.
You see who got the job in football first. That's me.
Right. So that's made it a lot easier on me with the transition. But the opportunity for this building, it's such a beautiful building, and being able to be along for the ride has been wonderful.
So now that your parents are in Vegas as well, is that helping the work-life balance, right? You have your daughter, Harper, you're just so busy, right? And so how do you balance for those working moms out there? How do you find that sort of balance?
So a really great friend of mine in the industry, we had this conversation not too long ago, right? Because we all struggle with what's the perfect balance? What's the perfect balance? So her and I were having a discussion, and she was like, there is no balance. You know, there's a period of time where you're going to give 100% to your job because you have projects that you need to get done, because you also love your career. And then there's another period of time where you're going to give 100% to your family, and that's okay. So we tend to beat ourselves up a lot with, okay, what's the perfect balance? I've been at work since 7, so how am I going to get that time back with Harper? When Harper is probably at home watching Frozen, not thinking anything about me. Once I had that conversation with her and I took out the balance in my mind, it's been a lot more easier for me. I've had a conversation. So when I first had Harper, I had a conversation with our president, and I said, listen, I'm a new mom. I'm leaving here at 5 o'clock every day. He said, I don't care. You can leave at 4 if you want to. That's who he is, right?
Yes.
And it started to let me see that, hey, listen, I know that I do my work. If there's an issue that requires my full attention, I'm going to do it. And also know that once that's complete, I'm going to give that time to my family. So if we take out these, like, it's either this or that, it'll help. Just do your job, be the great mom that you are, and don't beat yourself up over it.
You went in and were like, I'm leaving at 5 every day. And did you tell yourself a story that was not going to be accepted?
Yes. I sure did. I kind of went in half joking, but like serious about it. Mm-hmm. He was like, I don't care, kiddo. Just do what you need to do. Because I was ready for my speech, right? I'm going home. All of you guys have had your children. You have your wives at home. I knew it. Whatever. Do it. Go home.
That's fantastic. So the story you told yourself was they were going to put up a fight. They obviously didn't. Would you have said something different if you went in thinking they're going to give me, they don't care what I do as long as I get my job done? Would you have asked for a different scenario?
I probably would have phrased it differently.
And not rehearsed that speech over and over again.
I probably would have said, hey, listen, if it's okay with you, I'm going to adjust my schedule until I get my bearings. But I'll continue to be reached on email. I would have said something instead of, I'm going home at 5. Because I could have been like, I'm just leaving my schedule open. And, I could have left at 2. I could have left at 3. So
I felt your pain in that moment. I was like, I've been there, not with trying to get, not with children, but just in general, I just go in and I'm just going to demand something. This is it. And then if I'm like, oh, they didn't even care. Why did I make up this story in my head? It prevented me from getting maybe what I really wanted or something, a different version. Like I was so worried about 5 o'clock, I'm out, but really 2 o'clock might have helped on Wednesdays, and I just leaving the schedule open, like you said, right?
You're absolutely right. And even outside of that scenario, we tend to do that, or I know I do. I tend to work it up in my mind, and then I spit it out before even looking at the room or watching the person that I'm actually speaking to. Mm-hmm. It's the skill of negotiation, right? When you negotiate with someone, automatically just blurt everything out. You try to see what's important and then you work from there. But no, I threw all that out the window.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Like just, we forget all of a sudden just temporarily. And then we're just like, well, that doesn't apply to us. Like I have to do it this way. And I find myself, I coach my clients on this, but I coach myself on this too. I'm like, why am I so worked up over this? And I don't know how they feel, or I don't know what they're thinking. And I always say, careful of the story you're telling yourself. Ask for what you want, but just careful of the story you've made up before you go in.
Oh my gosh, I love that.
I can't take credit for that. That is Brené Brown.
Wait, I have her book in here that I haven't read yet.
Ooh, which one? Yeah.
Dare to Lead.
Mm-hmm. You have to read it. You're going to love it. You're going to love it.
Okay. I'll put that on my balance list.
Yes. I'm going to put this in the show notes for other people to check out too. And she has all these things on her websites, like all these free resources to go along with the book.
Oh, that's wonderful.
So Brené Brown is not paying me for an ad. I kind of wish she was. But it was one of my favorite books. I listened to it on Audible and then I bought the book so then I can go back and do more work in it.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah. So you'll have to let me know what you think.
I will. It's been up there for a while.
There you go. It's time to come out.
It's time to come out.
All right. So looking back at your career, your incredible career, what is one thing you would do different?
I think one thing I would hope to do differently is work out the self-doubt that tends to creep in throughout my career, right? Even walking into a room not walking into a room, getting on a virtual call as recently as last week, where I was the only female there, the only person of color there, and that self-doubt starts to creep in. But getting rid of that, how? I do not know. Maybe more conversations like this, but that's one thing I would say, looking back, I would look to work on sooner rather than later, even though I was promoted quickly from inside sales. Maybe if I did the things earlier on to show my worth, who knows what that would have turned out to be. Even though my career with the Raiders has still been wonderful, there's still times where you're like, So I think that I would work to do. And in regards to being a leader, looking back on my career, there was a time where I had a person on my team and I established a true friendship with them. And there was a true thin line between friendship and manager. And unfortunately, I let the friendship outweigh the manager, right? And so I wasn't the best manager, which in turn didn't make me the best friend because it didn't help that individual get to the next part of their career. So looking back at that as a leader, I would definitely draw the line between the two. Now, you can still have a relationship with your team, but in the right way, because you don't want to hinder anyone from their growth. And if I'm not able to call a person in the office and tell them, hey, let's work on this, let's work on that, because I'm too worried about the friendship, that's not going to help either one of us.
Yes. So I've been there, and I'll add to that, because I was able to have the friendship, but also I would call them in and have the really difficult conversations.
Yeah.
And you know what? It weighed on me more because I'm having to have these conversations with somebody who I'm close with. And, when she was underperforming, which was not very often, it was usually she was just being a pain in the ass. But if she was listening, she'd be like, yeah, I totally was. But it was, it took up my energy.
Yeah.
Right. I don't regret that because I met my husband through her. And then, so then, she surprised me at my wedding. So that's, a lot of good came from it, but that's not always the case. And after that, it was like, I have to have those boundaries. You're right.
You do. You have to have the boundaries. And in the long run, it will be the best thing for you. But boundaries have to be created. And it was a great learning experience for me because all the time, I lead with my heart. And you have to be careful of that as well. I'm not saying people don't lead with your heart because that's true leadership. That's valuable leadership. but just be careful.
Yeah.
Be wise in everything that you do.
So let's go back to the self-doubt for a minute. I'm sure there's a lot of women who are listening who are thinking, no way, this VP does not have self-doubt anymore. Mm-hmm. And it sounds like to me, if I'm understanding it correctly and looking at your career, you have it, you still get it, but you fight through it. Mm-hmm. It's just a temporary roadblock, if you will. You do not let it hold you back. Am I getting that right?
You're absolutely right. It comes and I fight through it. I mean, having 7 brothers, you got to know how to fight, right? Huh? Mental fights are the hardest types of fights as well, because people can see the smile on my face and my bubbly personality, but they don't really know what's going on in this beautiful brain of mine. So, it creeps in. I just have to fight through it. It's a daily struggle. I wouldn't even call it a struggle. Like you mentioned, it's a daily roadblock that tries to get me from stopping to do what I do best. Just working through it. You have to work through it.
Mm-hmm. And tell us, what are a few ways that you put up that fight? Yeah.
So a few ways I put up that fight is, again, speak up. Speaking up is the best thing, because a lot of times when you say something, people will come to you and say, hey, you mentioned a great thing there. I'm really happy that you brought that up. If you didn't bring that up, I don't know if I have the courage to do it. So those type of things continue to motivate, right? Speaking up, listen, I know sometimes this isn't the most political answer anymore, but I have to make sure I start my day with prayer, because I have to make sure that my internal relationship is 100%, right? So that also helps me with my fight. And then my relationship with my mom, because she is actually the one that I look up to the most, my father as well, but my mom, she is an entrepreneur. She knows what it takes to be a leader. And just by having the constant communication with her definitely helps me. I text her throughout the day. Hey, what do you think about this? And usually she's like, girl, if you don't go back in there and just say what it is, right? So she's my constant with this daily career journey.
That's good. So speak up, prayer to start your day, right? Yeah. For me, I'm not religious. I didn't grow up in a religious household. So for me, I have to use daily gratitude.
Oh, yes.
At least I was doing 3 and it wasn't enough. So I do like 10 every day, and it makes you stop and reflect and really think about what you have. And then your day starts off on such a great note. And then your relationship with your mother.
Mm-hmm.
I like
That's the most important one for me, is the relationship with her. For a person to raise 9 kids and still have your own business, and then you have your husband, and I don't know how she did it. So her words of advice I cherish. And so I make sure to have that constant communication with her every day. If I don't hear from her, say when we get off of this call and she hasn't sent me a text, I'm going to reach out and be like, hey, what's going on? What are you busy doing today?
I do the same thing. My sister and I'm like, did you hear from mom today? Like, what are they doing? Why hasn't she texted us? Yeah.
Absolutely.
So as we wrap up, although I feel like we could talk forever.
Yes.
What is the best piece of advice you've ever received?
Be yourself. And that came from my president not too long ago. And I think that that's one of the best pieces of advice, because a lot of times we can look at an individual in our career and think, oh, I want to be just like that person. But there's no one like you. So be you and do it well. I have a loud laugh. When I laugh, everyone hears me in this office. It's contagious. But guess what? People appreciate hearing my laughter come out of my office. And just being you, being the authentic you. And that's the best piece of advice. Again, because a person, they're not going to bring you on board because you are someone else. They're going to bring you on board because of who you are. And I think that's very important.
Yes, that's really good advice.
Yeah.
Okay, so we talked.
I'd love to be Oprah. I'm not her.
Yes.
Qiava.
I know. I wanted to be Mia Hamm. That didn't happen. Then I wanted to be Oprah, and that didn't happen. I was like, all right. There's something not working with that model. So you are right.
Look at you now.
Yes. Okay. If someone wanted to talk to you and connect with you, what's the best way to get in touch?
So they can get in touch with me LinkedIn, which I have to admit sometimes I don't get on all the way, but also feel free to email me at qmartinez@raiders.com.
All right. Fantastic. Well, thank you so much. We loved having you.
Oh my gosh. I thank you so much for having me on today. Like you mentioned, I feel as though I could talk to you all day long. So this has been wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you for listening. I would love to stay connected with you. You can follow me on Instagram at Jahaan Blake, and don't forget to subscribe to this podcast. If you're interested in learning more about how I can support you in your journey in the sports industry, email me at jblake@thejblakegroup.com or send me a DM on Instagram. I look forward to hearing from you.